So this is the easiest way to play retro games on your Nvidia Shield or your Fire TV Cube or really any other Android device. Now we're going to use a combination of three things. We're going to use the K application because this application will allow us to use the Internet Archive games launcher, and we'll use that application to download and stream any ROM we want to play from directly from the Internet Archive, and then we'll use that ROM inside retroarch. Retroarch is without doubt the best application for emulation. It just has so many cores, so much potential, so many things you can do to really get the best emulation performance. The only thing that's lacking on retroarch is it doesn't actually have any of the ROMs itself, and that's exactly what we'll be supplying via the Zach Morris add-on. So in this video today, let me show you how you can make your Nvidia Shield or your Fire TV Cube or even your 4K Fire Stick into a one-stop retro emulation machines. Okay, so as mentioned at the start of this video, I'm going to make this process as simple as possible. Even though RetroArch really does have so many things you can do with it, so many tweaks, I'm just going to show you the simplest way we can use that to play all of our classic retro games. Now for this process, we need to have just three things. We need to have the K application installed, which is the latest version 18.6. We need to have the latest version of RetroArch, and we also need to have the Zach Morris repo. Now if you go to my website, which is just TechDoctorUK.com, go over to the tutorials page, and there you'll see a link for Nvidia Shield Fire Stick Retro Gaming. Click on that link and you can then click on this repo here and download that directly to your machine. You'll also see a link for the K application and also RetroArch, but as I'm following the process on my Nvidia Shield Pro, both those applications are actually available on the normal Play Store, and click on the green download button. So that's the only thing we need to download manually ourselves. The other two things on the Nvidia Shield we can get directly from the Play Store. Okay, so once you get the confirmation that the zip file is downloaded, we can leave that as is. I can now press the home key and we can now go to the Play Store and install these two applications, this one here and RetroArch. Let me now get my game controller. Now I have tested this process with the Nvidia Shield controller and also the Xbox One controller, so really any Bluetooth controller will be fine for this process. So let's start RetroArch for the first time. Okay, let's give that permission. Let's click on OK. Click on Allow. Okay, give that a second for it to do its stuff. Okay, once that's done, we now have the option to load cores. Now, on RetroArch, a core is basically your emulator. So there'll be a core for your Sega Mega Drive, a core for your main games, a core for your PlayStation, and so on and so forth. Now, in this example, I'm only going to focus on a couple of cores. So let's click on Load Core. Let's click on Download a Core. And we can see there literally is just so many things or so many cores we can play on here. Everything from PC Engine to NDS and so on and so forth. So for this demo, I'm going to do this one here. Let's click on that. Okay, it's now downloaded. Let's go down. And let's also do this one here. So that's two cores so far. Let's go down. Let's do this Neo Geo one over here. That's three cores. And lastly, let's do this PlayStation 1. So that's four cores in total. Let's click on that. That's now all downloaded. Let's press the back button. So now when I go to load core, we can see I have those four cores available for me. But as previously mentioned, guys, you can download as many cores as you like. Let's press the back button again. Now the great thing about RetroArch is that it automatically detects most of the standard controllers. So I've not done any configuration. I've literally just turned on the controller and we can see it's automatically mapped the buttons. The only thing I recommend changing is firstly one button to select to quit RetroArch and the second button to select to bring up the RetroArch menu. So they're the two things we're going to manually change now. So let's go down. Select input. Let's go down. Let's go to hotkey binds. And we can see by default, we can set a key to automatically quit RetroArch as long as you press that key twice. Let's go down. And here it is, guys. So it's asking you which key do you want to actually use to quit RetroArch. So I'm going to map that to the trigger button here when you press this down because I don't use that for any other game. So I press the A button on that. And I have to hold which button I want to map to that. So I'm going to press and hold this. Hold for a few seconds. Okay, so that button is now mapped to quitting RetroArch. So now if I press this twice, it should quit RetroArch for me. And I'll explain why that's important in just a second. And let's scroll back up. And here we have the menu toggle gamepad combo. So what is the button combination that you have to press to get your menu to come up when you're actually playing a game? So let's click on that. I like to choose start and select, which on the Shield is basically the play button and the back button together. So let's select that now. So that's all of the config now done for RetroArch. I can now back out of this. In fact, let me now test the quit button. So I'm going to double press this, 1, 2, and that's quit retroarch. So that's basically the shortcut we're going to use when we want to exit what we're doing. Okay, let's now start this application for the first time. Okay, let's click on continue, click on allow. Now, I did mention this in my previous video. Just because I'm showing you this process from scratch, it doesn't mean if you already have this application, you can't follow the process. If you already have this application installed, or maybe if you have a special build on there, just change your skin back to the default, and then you can follow the same process as I'm going to show you now. So the first thing we need to do is go over to settings, which is the cogwheel. Let's click on this one here. And we're going to click on install from zip file. Okay, let's click on settings because we need to give that permission. Click on allow and click on yes. Okay, so we can now install from unknown sources. Let's press the B button. Let's click on that again. Let's now go to external storage. And because we use the downloader application to download that zip file, the Zach Morris repo, I'm now going to open up that folder. Okay, I've got it 3 times because I've been testing this a lot, but just select your zip file. We get the message that the repo is now installed. I can now go to this option here, select Zach Morris, go to the last option, and here is the Internet Archive Games Launcher. And let's click on install. These are some of the dependencies that will be automatically installed. Let's click on OK. And just while we're waiting for this, guys, if you are enjoying these kind of videos, if you want to see more tutorials on the NVIDIA Shield or the 2nd generation Fire TV Cube or the 4K Fire Stick, or even your generic Android boxes like this B link down here, then please do like this video and also think about subscribing, because that really is the best way you can help out my channel. Thank you. All right, so we're nearly there. Okay, so when you see this message, let's click on no. We can now click on this and we can now go to configure. Now here's the key thing. So we need to now basically configure this add-on. So this will basically go to the Internet Archive and download those ROMs for us, but we then need to send those ROMs over to RetroArch, and that's what we're going to be configuring here. Let's go down. Now the only thing I like to change in here is the default cache size, and I mentioned this quite in detail in my previous video, but essentially if this is set to 0, only the current game that you play will be downloaded on your device. If you choose to play another game, then that first game will then be removed and the second game will be downloaded. So if you have storage issues on your device, or maybe you're doing this on a Fire Stick which doesn't have much storage, then you can leave this as 0 and every game you want to play will just be downloaded on demand. But as I'm doing this on the Shield, I'm going to increase this to 1 gig. But I mean, most of the 8-bit and 16-bit games are normally only a few meg in size anyway, so with 1 gig of available buffer size or cache size, that's more than enough storage. Let's click on OK. Let's go to the left. Let's go down. And because my system type is Android, I'm going to click on that, go down, and select Android. Okay, let's leave this as default. Let's go to the left again. Let's go down. And here we have the emulated launcher. By default, it's set to the native one, which we know is very good, but just RetroArch is a lot more versatile. So let's click on that. Now I can now select external. And let's now execute that setup wizard. Let's click on that. Okay, so do you have the RetroArch already installed? Yes, I do. And it says, please locate the system directory. Let's click on yes. Let's go to external storage. Let's go down. There is RetroArch there. Let's go down and we're looking for that system directory. There it is. Okay, that's now selected. Let's click on OK. So do you have the config file? We say yes. And we can see it actually automatically finds that for us. So I can go over to the right and click on OK. Now I always say no here, but if you do go ahead and create a free account on archive.org, there are certain ROMs that you can only access with an account. So if you do find that certain games don't seem to be coming down to your device, it could be that that particular game can only be accessed if you have an archive account, but I want to go for no for now. Okay, let's click on OK. And there it is. So what's happening now is all of the game lists, all of the different categories are all now being updated. So when you do click on anything, it's automatically going to send that particular game file over to RetroArch. So the IAGL does the downloading or the streaming, and that sends that file over to RetroArch to actually play. So you really get the best of both worlds. Okay, let's click on OK. All right, we can now open this up for the first time, although we can see it is doing its update, so maybe we'll give that a second. Okay, that's now all updated. Let's now open this up for the first time. Okay, let's click on agree. Okay, let's now go to category. Let's go straight to the 64-bit. Let's just try this one here. Let's try this one over here. Now, I did actually find an interesting quirk just with N64, and it may exist on other emulators as well, but what happens is sometimes if you have more than one emulator or one core downloaded on RetroArch, sometimes Internet Archive Games Launcher gets confused and it doesn't know which emulator inside RetroArch it should actually tell RetroArch to start. That's why sometimes you get a black screen, and I've actually got a fix for that, but I just want to make sure this works first time, then I'll show you how you can apply that to any category or any game that needs it. Let's give that a second, and let's see if we can now actually emulate N64 on our Shield with IHEL via the Internet Games Launcher over to RetroArch. Let's press the start button, and this does actually use the analog stick, which is fine. All right, and we are now emulating N64 on our Shield, and the amazing thing is this ROM was actually streamed directly to us. We didn't need to download it in advance or anything like that. We can just access all of those games from the archive directly on our device, and that's working great. Now, the key thing, as I mentioned, guys, is when you do finish playing a game, if you want to do something else, how do you get back to the K application? Well, the way you do that, and it's very important you do actually do that in the correct way, is you press the start and select button together, and that's the combination that we selected before. So let's press them together now. And now we get the option to exit. That's one way to do it. The other way is you could just double tap this, but let's go for this now, exit. And I'll show you how I fix those N64 games, because before they were giving me a blank screen. Let's now double press this. And we're back to here. So that's basically the process on how you finish your game, whichever game you're playing in whichever console, and get back to the Internet Archive Games Launcher. Okay, so as previously mentioned, I did notice that when I did install more than one emulator, these games were actually coming up with a blank screen, so it wasn't actually able to launch the emulator properly. So how did I fix that? Well, I press the back button here. So when you go to the top level of any list, like the best of Game Gear, best of Game Boy, or in this case the best of N64, if you press and hold the select button, we can see we now get a special menu on how we can actually configure all of those games in that category. You scroll down, and what we want to do here is we want to update the launch command, because this basically says when you do click on any game inside that list, how does it actually launch inside RetroArch. So let's click on that. And now we get to see all of those emulators in RetroArch. So all I needed to do now was go down here and just make sure that I'd selected the core I wanted to launch when I play these games. So let's go down. Let's go for this one here, the Parallel LEI N64. Let's click on that. So do you want to update the launch command? I say yes. So once again, that just updates all of those games in that list, and it makes sure that when it does go over to RetroArch, it's going to launch the correct core for us. So let's do one final test to make sure that's working okay. And this is the last N64 test, nearly there. And in fact, guys, keep your finger on the like button or even dislike button. If this works first time, you know what to press. And if it doesn't work, you can hit the but that's worked. And that's worked first time as well. So press the start button. And that's working great, guys. And this is actually a really good game. And let's hide over here. All right, so let's take on these bad guys. So, let's jump on his head. And that's working great, guys. So definitely, you shouldn't have any problems playing any of the different emulators on here. And if you ever have the issue where you do see the blank screen, you know the easy fix for it. Let's do a final try of PlayStation. Let's find Tekken in the list here. Is that going to work first time? And there we have it. So I can now press the start button. And we are now emulating PlayStation 1 on our NVIDIA Shield. And this game was directly downloaded from archive. So it's really not an overstatement when I say you do have access to a massive library of just thousands of games from so many different systems, everything from your Mega Drives to your arcades to your PlayStation 1. In fact, I might even try a PSP after this. And any game you want to play, just one click, stream that game directly onto your device, and then use RetroArch to play it. And as you can see, guys, the performance is just amazing. And there we have it. We are now emulating PlayStation Portable PSP running on our NVIDIA Shield. And that's working great and looking really smooth as well. I mean, the trouble is when you have just so many consoles and so many games to play, what do you actually play? But I mean, I think in the current climate where everyone is kind of like, you know, stuck at home, just having access to this massive library, kind of like a Netflix for retro games, and any game you want to play, just one click, and that game is instantly streamed onto your device, and then you can play that via retroarch. So that's all for this video, guys. Many thanks for watching, and many thanks for staying till the end. If you did find this video useful, please do give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more stuff like this, then, well, you know what to do. As always, I always appreciate your likes, your shares, your comments. So do let me know what you think. Leave me a comment below, and I'll hopefully catch up with you guys real soon. Thanks.